Hello and welcome back to the Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm really looking forward to talking about Tremors.
Yeah.
This is a nice, like, kind of, it's technically a horror movie, but it's a real feel good,
Well,
silly.
I don't see it as a horror movie, so I see it as a monster movie.
Yes, I
So
agree. It has elements.
you know,
I think some of the
it's
night
a minor
scenes, some of
distinction.
the, has moments, but
Yeah,
it's.
I mean, there are some really nasty stuff in it, but it's yes. But I've always seen it as more, more akin to something like, say, the old sort of it came from the desert type things, and
Yes.
more of that sort of stuff than an actual horror movie.
I was really impressed rewatching this how much the practical effects stood up actually.
Oh, they're fantastic,
They're
aren't they?
really good. I think I forgot just how good they were.
Yeah, well, I was looking up stuff for it. So they were done by Amalgamated Dynamics,
Yeah, okay.
which actually came from what's his name? I'm gonna forget his bloody name.
I
The guy.
remember them being attached to a lot of films back in the day.
Yeah, they came from Sam Winston's. So
Sam Winston Studios.
yeah, Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Gills were part of his group, and then
Okay.
And one of the things I found out, which I found interesting, was so they did the effects for the Thing remake.
Oh, the effects that then got butchered.
Exactly, they did that. And what I didn't know is their effects got fucked over.
They made The Void after that. That's why they made The Void. They were like, "Fuck it, we'll make a movie." This got all practical.
They made something before that.
Did they?
Yeah, they did a Kickstarter campaign, and they made this movie called Harbinger Down, which I've never seen, and I didn't know about until I was looking at this. So this movie is called Harbinger Down, or Inanimate, I think, over here. And it sounds very thingy, and it's got very practical effects in it.
Oh.
I don't think it's scored very good, but it's got Lance Henriksen in it and as well. And it's a Soviet moonlander crashes in the Bering Sea, and it's got, I think, giant tardigrades in it, which is interesting.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, and I thought, damn, I've really got to watch that. So I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to look out for it. Yeah, I think it was partially done by the Sci-Fi Channel. I don't think it did very well, but
Sci-Fi Channel is often a red flag, but we'll give it a go.
But apparently the effects are really good, so it's probably worth watching for the effects alone, and for Lance Henriksen.
Yeah, Lance Henriksen's always worth a watch.
So yeah, the effects are brilliant. I love that the graboid creatures, they're all really well done. They all look really cool. Still even now.
That's what I mean. Like rewatching it now, they still look good. I have yet to rewatch Tremors 2, so we'll see how well. I am going to watch it soon though, because I remember enjoying Tremors 2 for what it was.
Yeah.
So we'll see how well the stop motion animation of the evolved graboids turns out to be.
It's been a long time since I've seen the others.
I always remember the birth scene being really creepy in the second one when they're first kind of breaking out of the graboid.
Yeah.
I always remember that being really creepy because it's all set at night and looks really
yeah.
cool.
I think that like you said, it's Tremors. I tend to catch every year or so.
Yes.
Every now and again. The others not. No,
I don't think I've seen the second one since I saw it on VHS.
No, I don't think I have either. And I think I've only seen 1 to 4.
So I've only seen 1 to 2. I have never bothered with any of the sequels.
So
I gather there's about 50 of them.
There's 7, I think.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and they, I think one of them is technically a sequel, but is different creatures, Shrieker Island or something.
Oh.
So it's different creatures, but that does have Michael Gross in it again.
Oh, okay.
He's in more than any of the other characters. He's in at least half of them, I think.
Yes, I gather he's like the one guy they kept going.
Yeah, and I remember seeing 4 as a prequel. 4 is set in the Old West.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of down with that in a weird way.
That's got Gross playing his ancestor.
Well, I guess it's kind of cool in a way, except this movie is about them having evolved in this tiny little place, and it's kind of weird if they were around in the West as well. Although evolution takes a long time, so maybe.
I suppose it's something that you could say radiation or something.
Yeah, you would have imagined that they would have been found by now, though.
Yeah, you would have thought
if
so.
they were around since the West. But whatever. Yeah. It sounds like a fun movie.
It was. I remember it being rubbish, but sort of slightly enjoyable.
Yeah.
And there's a TV series that I never saw.
Yep, same.
And last year, I think it was, they actually filmed the pilot with Bacon's character, but it wasn't picked up.
Yeah, I never watched it as a result. But yeah, I mean the other than this being an awesome movie, half the reason we're covering Tremors is obviously because Fred Ward passed away a couple of weeks ago. So it seemed like a good tribute to the great Fred Ward, who is fantastic in this film.
Oh, he's so good in this. I mean, to be honest, him and Bacon in this are their relationship in this is absolutely brilliant.
They're fantastic.
It's one of the best buddy movies.
It really is.
Ever made, I think.
Because they give each other so much shit, but you can really tell that they love each other.
Yeah.
And personally, Earl is my favorite.
Yeah.
Character of Tremors.
Yeah, I love Earl as well.
But I mean, Val is hilarious, but Earl is.
Awesome. And I mean, Michael Ross's character and Reba McEntire, they're brilliant as well. I love how these preppers that.
Oh yeah. They were like living for this fucking situation to happen.
Yeah,
they're like, this is exactly what they want. Not very rarely in this movie, until things get really desperate towards the end, they're just fucking loving it. They're just having a whale of a time.
Absolutely brilliant.
So when did you first see Tremors? I saw it on. I think I saw it on TV. To be honest,
I saw it on video when it came out.
Yeah, I definitely owned it on video. I'm sure I saw it on TV first, though. It feels like something I taped on TV. But
yeah,
can't be sure.
I think something like probably Bravo or something probably played it constantly. I know one of the channels always seemed to have it on. Yeah,
I want to say Bravo actually. I think Bravo or maybe Sci-Fi as it was back then.
English sci-fi was always rubbish though.
It was compared to
it's never been very good.
I mean, they gave us Pitch Black, which is great.
That's true.
I'll give them that. Give them that one movie. But I did used to enjoy sci-fi when it was called the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
Not Sci-Fi or whatever it's called now. That they were good. They had some stuff.
The problem for the Sci-Fi Channel over here is that all sort of other channels had all the good sci-fi.
Yeah, they came over here too late, and all the rights were just distributed elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, so they had very little to them.
But occasionally you'd see like a gem on there, and you'd be like, "Oh, okay," something slipped through the cracks. But yeah, it was mostly schlock. But
which in its own way
itself is fine. Yeah, I think you're right though. I'm going to go with Bravo being the culprits of Tremors. I think I saw it on TV and taped it, and then obviously bought the VHS eventually. So shall we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
And obviously 1990.
Yep.
So we open with a really beautiful shot. I mean, this is like kind of it's set in this fictional town.
Yeah.
But it's got gorgeous landscapes, and we open on a really lovely landscape. And we open with Earl asleep, don't we?
Yeah.
And Val comes over and he does try to wake him up for like a split second. He's like, "Hey Earl, wake up." Just like he tries.
Yeah.
And of course Earl doesn't. I think he shifts a bit, but he doesn't wake. And then Val starts jumping up and down on the side of the truck.
He looks over, sees some cows.
You're like two cows though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then rocks the truck and shouting "Stampede."
Yeah,
I love his reaction. It's hilarious.
Well, it is kind of a genuine reaction. And then he immediately looks towards the cows and realizes, and he's like, "You son of a bitch!"
And he goes to tell this clearly a story he's told many times before because
he was in a stampede once, and
yeah.
Well, because Val finishes the sentence, doesn't he?
Yeah,
like,
he does.
I know. So these Val and Earl, they're basically odd job guys. They do odd jobs throughout town.
Like they do almost everything.
And
this town, fix everything, do all the crappy jobs, like literally removing crap.
Yeah.
And doing the rubbish dump and all that sort of things.
Yeah.
And also, so and we also get here was what you get set up for their thing, which he says to him about, "It's your turn for breakfast." He says, "No, it's not. We had eggs and beans yesterday, or whatever it was." And he says, "No, it isn't. I did this yesterday."
Isn't it beans and bologna yesterday or something?
Yeah. And he says,
and Earl says, "No, I made eggs." And
yeah, and they do the rock paper scissors thing, which
yeah.
Me and my mate basically did that. We still do that whenever we have to make a choice now. We've done that ever since this movie. Just every time we have to make a choice, it's rock paper scissors.
Yeah. Now, isn't it also here? They're actually at the cliff where we end the movie as well. At this point.
Oh, I think you might be right. Yeah.
I only noticed it this time watching it. I was like, oh, it's the same place. I think they end where they started.
I think you're right.
But can we just take a moment to just appreciate how absolutely shit Kevin Bacon is at nailing the staple into the top of this film.
Oh, and that was
he misses it every time. Like, he finally gets it, and he kind of acts like you can tell he knows that it took him ages. And, and I love the little smile he gives when he actually gets it.
And was apparently that was not done on purpose either.
No, I'm sure it wasn't. It looks like he was just genuinely crap at it, but I love it because it's so natural. It's fantastic.
It's really weird as well because Kevin Bacon hated this movie.
I don't know why. This is such a fun movie.
I
had a massive smile the whole time I rewatched this.
I think he'd sort of, by this point he's got a pretty big name. He's
sure, yeah.
A few like big hits. And I think he just felt like, oh my God, what am I doing this crappy B movie for? Why am I here? Sort of thing. And I think he sort of grew to love it later. But I think at the beginning, when he was doing it and afterwards, he really hated it. His wife was pregnant at the time as well. I think he was. So I'm guessing he just felt like he was being pulled away from everything, and it was just a bit, bad for him. Which luckily does not come across on the screen at all.
Not at all. It actually looks like he's having a great time. Which I guess just speaks to his acting ability. If he was hating every second of it. But yeah, as you said, they work around perfection. They empty shit. They clean out rubbish. All sorts of stuff.
Yeah, build any building work and stuff like that. They need to do.
Yeah, and we are kind of introduced to a couple of the townsfolk as they do those jobs.
Yeah.
And we also meet Rhonda, who is the university student. She's investigating earthquakes, and so Val's already heard about her, right? He's like, "Oh, I heard about her," and then
there was already a scientist there apparently doing something, and now he's moved on, and they've got a new.
But he's heard it's a woman.
Yeah, and Val's got this list,
very specific type.
Yeah, what is the name of the Tammy Lynn Baxter? I think is the name of the perfect person he's looking for or something.
Right.
And it's like blonde hair, blue eyes, big boobs, and
something like that.
And then when they get there, she is not any of those things.
No, it's like she's gorgeous, but she's the opposite of what he was after. Which is funny.
She's a little nerdy. I think she's got red hair and she's got freckles, and she's got that what's that? Shield sunscreen stuff on her nose.
Yeah, like the kind of comically like thick sunscreen. So she's a university student investigating earthquakes, and she basically tells them that she's getting some really weird signs from the seismographs out there.
Yeah, she's asked if anybody in the area is blasting or mining.
Yeah, because she's like, well, there's no earthquakes around, but I'm getting these seismic readings. And she asks, and they're like, we'll ask about, I guess, if while we're going around, and he's like, you can kind of tell Val likes her.
Yeah, well,
but he's also obsessed with this perfect woman in his head, so he kind of he won't kind of go there. And Earl the whole time is looking at him like, you should, this could be good for you, because I guess he probably sees it as like, Val's a Val's like his brother in life, right?
Yeah.
But he's a fucking idiot. and he's reckless and he's all of these things. And I'm thinking that Earl sees Rhonda and is like, look, Rhonda's a university student. She's got her shit together. She's working on this. You know, this could be good for you. She could fix him.
Let's face it, who else is he going to go for in this area?
Totally. Yeah.
There's just very slim pickings around here.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it like a population of 15 or something, I think, isn't it? So,
it's very small population.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're, you know, half of them are, you know, they're like almost bullied by the town idiot.
Yeah.
I forget his name. I'm trying to find his name in my notes. But yeah, you know, and then they got that scene where they get covered in. Yes, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, Melvin Plug.
And you know, they get covered in the shit when they're emptying it, and he's kind of laughing at them and stuff. They've basically had enough.
Yeah.
And they argue with
you get the feeling that they've like tried to leave the place a number of times.
Well, they do,
and
because
never quite got there.
Yeah, they do, because they have an argument after they're covered in shit. And he's like, I want to, like, Earl's like, I just want to leave. And Val's like, yeah, you don't mean it. And then he realizes he does mean it. And he's like, right, okay, we're doing it then. We're doing it. We're leaving. And they pack all their stuff. And they start to drive off, and they get offered a job that was going to take them a couple of weeks, wasn't it? It was like looking after the house for a couple of weeks or something like that.
I think was it building a kiln or something?
Oh, that's right. It was building a kiln, and it was going to take a couple of weeks worth of work. And they say no.
And
she even offers beer.
She even free beer as well, and you can see them looking, and you can see them thinking about it.
Well, and I love that cut, because it cuts as if they've agreed.
Yeah,
because it cuts on their look of like beer. And it cuts, and you assume they've taken it, but then they're actually celebrating as they drive down the road because they've had the strength to finally leave. So like you said, and to your point, I think they have tried to leave several times, and every time a job comes along and they're like, oh, we'll stay a couple more weeks,
just a bit more,
just a little longer, longer.
When he comes out of the they're in there is the trailer, and he comes out sort of, you know, after he's washed up and everything, he brings the Hoover out, and he says, what are you bringing the Hoover for? He says, I love this Hoover. He says, nothing else, we can use it for parts. He's like, what? How do you know? Because we can always, you know, we've never used it. He's like, besides, how do you know we won't get a maid when we get into our new place?
But yeah, so they're celebrating their exit. But on the way, they notice the local town drunk at the top of an electricity tower.
Yeah.
And they look at each other and they're like, we can't just leave this asshole up there. Like, he'll probably kill himself when he wakes up, right?
Yeah.
So they pull over, they go up, they start shouting at him. He won't come down. So eventually Val climbs up there.
Well, after they do the
rock, paper, scissors again.
Paper, scissors.
Yeah, he's not very good at it.
No.
So Val climbs up there and finds that the drunk guy's actually died. He is dead with a rifle in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And they wonder why he stayed up there so long that he died. Because it apparently looks like he died of thirst, from what they can tell.
Yeah, dehydration.
And they take him to the doctor. And the doctor basically says, yeah, look, you know, this drunk, I think Edgar, he died of dehydration. So that's kind of confirmed it to them, and they're like, why would he climb up there and just go without water for so long that he died with a gun in his hand? Like,
what would have chased him up there and kept him up there with a fully loaded gun? You know, why?
Dehydration is like a base instinct as well.
He says, he's been up there for must be at least 3 days.
Yeah, like you've fought every instinct in your body to find water at that point just to stay up there. So something must have done that, you know. And they start this kind of, they start to get in their heads this idea that there might be a killer out there, that someone's murdering people or doing something.
I think in the original script, I think they wanted to try and make it more I think they were trying to set up that angle more. They wanted it to be
a murderer,
really seem like it was a serial killer out there and not a creature. But I think
they couldn't go too far with that.
No,
due to the nature of the creatures, it just doesn't. And I think while they're there, a local cattle rancher actually says, like, some of my herds disappeared without a trace as well. Like, there's these mysteries going on around town.
Yeah, I think Nestor, isn't it? Nestor says that some of his kettle's gone when they're at the Chang's place.
Yes, yeah,
and we get the amazing, Victor Wong.
That guy is just, every time he's in a film, you're like, he's so good.
And it also sets up the noise from the fridge.
The space hopper we get earlier on as well.
Yeah, the pogo stick.
Pogo stick. Yes.
Yeah, so we got the pogo stick and the thing. So you got a number of things that they're clearly are
this is what I think is really well written, because it does pay off a lot of things. It sets up things and you don't realize they're being set up. They're not obvious setups. It works really well.
Because they get offered a job there as well. Fixing that his freezer or whatever it is. And that's before they leave, isn't it? And he's like, he's talking about
kind of decline everything, don't they?
He's got that speech about planning ahead, and he says, that's why we never get anything done.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course, that's the big argument, isn't it? Because again, Earl wants Val to get his shit together, and Earl says all of these problems are because your problem is you never plan ahead, and that's why you end up in this situation. But it's kind of bullshit, because Earl presumably does plan ahead, and he's in the same situation anyway. Exactly. So it is kind of like, well, you're no better off for all of your planning ahead, we see they agree to stay another night, I think, for some reason. I think it might be to do with the body. I can't quite remember why. Because we then cut to the evening where we see the doctor's trailer.
I think we get the guy with the sheep first.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, they're going to leave again, and they come across a load of dead sheep, don't they?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes, because you get the old guy who's. I mean, you look at that he's got that shack and that farm, and you think, how the hell does anything grow there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not a garden. It seems to be working for him, but you do think, Christ, how the hell does anything grow on that? It looks awful. And he's got that little pen with the sheep in, and you can see the sheep are getting agitated by something underneath the ground, and then he gets grabbed.
He does indeed.
He gets pulled in, and then you briefly see them attacking. The sheep are getting attacked by something as well.
Yeah. And
they're driving by, aren't they? And they stop.
Because they just see like scattered guts and corpses everywhere. Like, Jesus Christ. I think we actually missed a scene, because I think we see the Doctor trailer get attacked overnight before they leave. I think that might be the issue. I could be wrong though.
I think it's after.
Is it after? They must agree to stay for some reason, but I might be in my notes. We might get that answer in a moment.
Because they go over to the hat. They walk over to his hat.
I love that shot. This shot is great.
There's just his face staring up at them in horror. It's like,
yeah.
And that's when they drive past the workmen. And Earl screams at them, "There's somebody cutting people's heads off!"
Yeah, it's like a murderer on the loose. Get out of here!
Murderers out there, and they're just looking at it like, "What's he talking about?" It's
well, one of them believes him.
Yeah,
but he turns to his mate, and his mate's like, they're just yanking her chain, they're just being assholes, And to be fair,
you'd probably think that too.
If someone drove past and said that to me, I would be like, "You're full of shit."
Yeah,
I don't know that I'd believe them. But yeah, so
is it? I think is it this point you get the work where he
drills in, and he hits. Just blood pours up from the from the tarmac, and we hear the creature kind of make a noise, it shoots off with the drill still attached to it, but the guy gets caught up in the cable, and he gets dragged along as his friend kind of helplessly watches on.
Yeah.
And then we see that he's pulled up and under, and
Yeah,
presumably the end
that's
of him.
him gone. Yeah.
But yes, so they also find the so then they find the Doctor's car, I think, which is where we've missed a scene where the Doctor was previously killed. In a great scene. It's like a night scene. I really, really like it.
Yeah, got Carol Marcus there as well.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good. It's a great scene because
it's one of the few real sort of horror-y scenes in this movie.
Yeah, and it looks, they've been building their dream house, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about the stars and maybe not finishing the roof sort of things, so that they can like look at it all the time.
It's all nice and romantic for a moment.
It's really sweet. And then the generator disappears.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean the generator disappeared? Well, that's the cable's there, but the generator's not.
Yeah.
And of course, he again gets pulled under like the farmer.
Yeah, and she escapes to the car.
She's desperately trying to pull him up, and she even puts a plank down for him to try and grab him and pull himself up, but it's just not working.
Yeah.
And she gets into the car, and the
car starts getting pulled under as well.
Yeah, you sort of think that she's safe, but no, the car completely pulls the fucking car down.
Yeah. So, of course, they end up at the Doc's place, and they can hear music, but they can't figure out where it's coming from. And of course, they start to dig, and they find the headlights sticking up, like, vertically, so the car's like vertical underground. And then they start to head back, which is when they find the road is kind of blocked by a landslide, and they assume it's the workers that have caused it.
Yeah. And they find that the other worker was crushed underneath it, wasn't he?
Yes. Oh, that's right. Yes, of course. Yeah. They yell at them because they can, and they find the helmets, don't they? Just lying in a just covered in blood and slime.
That's the only road out of town as well.
We're effectively now we're like, okay, this is blocked. Yeah,
there's some sort of trail that leads to. Is it Bixby or something like that? Besby or something?
Yeah, somewhere else.
But it's rough terrain, and you need a good truck sort of thing to get up the trail.
Yeah. So they basically can't get out at this point. They basically they try to go through like a really small ridge, and it gets stuck, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, he goes to turn around, and I think he hits the back of the wall, doesn't he? And,
yes. And he's seemingly stuck on it. He's like snagged on it, and they can't. They eventually free themselves.
Yeah.
And they head back to town, but when they get there, they get out of the truck and they realize that there's like this long snake thing. That's wound around the rear axle. So it looks like that's what stopped them moving, basically.
And I think they do a pretty good job at this point as well of just showing you the snaky bits.
Yeah, because it could just be a swarm of these little snaky things or something. Yeah.
And I like chatting off it. Is it $5? I'll give you $5 for it.
Yeah,
like, 20. It's like 15. It's like done.
And they have this conversation all the time as well.
Yeah,
this guy just buys any interesting thing that they bring back, and they always barter for it. But he agrees to lend them some horses so that they can go to the county police. Because all the phone lines are down. Because that's right, they come in and they're like talking. They're like, "Look, there's been murders. Like, we need to call the police."
They've got a radio in Chang's, but it doesn't. The signal doesn't reach outside of the valley.
Yeah, so you can only talk to people in the valley anyway. So it kind of it's kind of pointless.
I think this is also where you get the preppers.
Yeah,
talking about they I think they say they're going to drive off and find the scientist girl.
Yeah,
they're going to go find Rhonda and warn her and maybe bring her back, and then the other guys are going to go on the horses to wherever it is.
Yeah, and of course, Bert and Heather are like, we've got a fucking nuclear bunker. We don't give a shit. Like, we're like full of weapons and we're fine. No worries. But yeah, so Earl and Val, they ride off as fast as they can on the horses, but the horses get spooked by snakes. So they end up running on foot, which is when the creature comes after them.
Yeah.
They end up running and jumping across a concrete ditch, which it basically causes the creature to hit the wall of the ditch and kill itself.
Yeah.
And that's when
I think they were aiming to jump across
it.
Yeah,
I think they were planning on it. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't quite make it.
No. And this is when the seismologist Rhonda turns back up.
Yeah, because the thing is, the creature has gone so fast. Was going so fast that when it hit the concrete, it basically killed itself.
Yeah, it killed itself, which of course comes into the ending of the movie as well, because this is where Val gets this whole thought process. Yeah. They also realize that the creature stinks, which I think is a running theme in this movie, because they keep talking about the place stinking and and all of that. And they discover that it's several meters long, and the snakes were just like the bit,
like its tongues.
Its tongue or something. Yeah. And I love that they're like, well, Walter's not getting this for like $20. This is gonna be like,
yeah.
And they start talking about how we could be on People magazine, and
my favorite one is Earl says to Rhonda, "Hey, have you heard of anything like this before?" And Val says, "Well, sure, Earl. Everybody knew about it. We just didn't tell you."
Yeah. Awesome.
I love it later on as well when he keeps asking her stuff, and there's a bit later on when they're in the thing, and she says, "Why do you keep asking me about this?" It's like, because you're a scientist, clearly. It's like,
yeah,
we should know everything.
But Rhonda has a thought and some bad news. She checks her seismographs, and she works out there must be at least 3 other of these creatures, because there was a period in time where I think it was happening in 3 places at once, across a vast distance, which obviously means there must be more. So they head back to and of course they're talking about, hey, we're going to need, like, before they find this out, they're like, hey, we'll need a flatbed truck, it'll have to be this long, and they're like properly talking about taking this thing, and but they head back to Perfection. They start heading back to Perfection, but then they get attacked by another one of the creatures. And
that's where they get up. They end up trapped on boulders.
That's right. So they're running, and they can basically see this like trail of dust as it's kind of coming after them, because obviously it's disturbing the earth. They end up running and get on some tall rocks where the creature basically can't get them. And after kind of testing the water for a little while, they're like, this thing ain't going nowhere. We're just gonna have to stay here the night until it buggers off, basically.
And I like the writers, Brendan Maddox and S.S. Wilson. This is kind of how they came up with the idea for this. So that apparently they were doing. I think they were doing.
It's basically like a movie based on The Floor Is Lava. That's this whole movie.
I think they were doing some work for the Navy. They were doing some filming for the Navy or something, and they were out in the desert, and I think they were climbing the rocks, and he said, "What if there was something under there?" Because I think Land Shark was what they were going to call it, and then they realized
Land Shark is now a film, and it's awful. But
there's also a character. There was also a Saturday Night Live character called Land Shark, which was, I think, Chevy Chase was
right.
So they ditched that, and I think there was like Beyond Perfection, I think, was going to be another name for it, and then they eventually decided on Tremors, which is much better, thankfully.
Tremors is a much more fitting name.
Yeah. So and it is like you said, it's just the floor is lava, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. So they basically decide to wait it out, with each of them saying just before nightfall that they all need a pee. They're all like,
and I love the way that they're doing this. They're arguing about what's the best thing to do. And she notices some poles, and she starts talking to them, and they're just completely ignoring her and not paying any attention to her whatsoever. So she just goes, "Fuck this," and she just picks up this pole and pole vaults across to the other side. And they look at her like,
"Yeah,
okay, that was a much better
Have you ever
idea."
pole vaulted before? Like, what's wrong with you? I do like that when they they stay here overnight. That Val wakes up and he's given her his coat and she's snuggled right into him, and he wakes up kind of like horrified that like he's been nice or that she's like, you know, interested. But yeah, so she pole vaults over, and then I think his Earl goes and grabs the other two, and he's gonna show Val how to pole vault over, and he fails miserably. He falls back on himself. And of course Val gets over, and then we get that really nice, I really like this big open long shot of the three of them pole vaulting across the different rocks. Really, because basically they Rhonda basically says, look, my truck is parked right next to one of the smaller rocks, so we could basically pole vault all the way across and then, you know, jump in the truck.
Yeah. I think that is one of my favourite things about this movie as well, is that almost all of it is done during the day.
Yeah, and it's quite effective. Some of the scares are reasonably effective for daytime.
There's very little night shots, and it's, you know, you see the creatures in full daylight, which is always great.
Yeah.
It's another thing that stands out so much with the creatures. You know, a lot of creatures in movies like this, they tend to do night stuff to hide the creatures. You know.
Yeah.
A little better, but they with these you don't need to. They're so well done that, you know, that they stand up to being in bright sunshine.
Yeah, absolutely. So they manage to escape, but the monster's kind of hot on their heels, and this is where they figure out that, I think it's Rhonda that figures it out, really, that the creatures must feel them and feel the vibrations. You know, because that, like, you know, any movement or noise that they're making is making vibration, and the creatures are attracted to it. So they get back to the drugstore, and Walter, they're trying to decide on a name. This is like Walter's like the most important thing, so we need to name them.
Yeah.
And they go for a couple of names. They eventually come up with Graboids. That's what they go with.
Which again is such a lame name.
It's rubbish, but it fits
works.
The B movie. Though,
exactly.
You know,
works perfectly for what they're going for.
It very much is like in line with a 50s B movie. This film really does feel like it is kind of a more comedic the giant ant movie from the 50s. And Graboid is something I would absolutely expect to see in a 50s science fiction movie, B movie particularly. So it works. Melvin's still being an asshole and mocking Earl and Val.
And he keeps sort of pretending to be grabbed by the snake.
Yeah, he's being a total dick.
He's a real little prick, and he keeps saying, one of these days I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah. But then, of course, so they're having this conversation, and then they hear the noise of Mindy hopping around on the hopper.
Yeah, he says, you know, he said to her mum, where is she, sort of thing. And oh, she's just down the road, you know, doing her thing, sort of thing.
Yeah.
On her pogo stick.
Yeah. So
earlier on, he asks
the count, doesn't he?
Yeah, he asks her count, and she's been doing it for ages.
And
of course, it's the little girl from Jurassic Park as well, which is...
Yes, it is. Yeah. I never noticed that until this watch as well.
Yeah. I've seen her in this. I think there was another movie I saw, and I can't remember what it is. But I don't think she had a massive career, but she's been in a few sort of things.
Yeah. But they all shout to her. But of course, she's got headphones on, so she can't hear them. So Val ultimately, heroically, runs across. The creature is basically following. They notice the creature going towards her, don't they? Yeah. Which is when Val runs. So Val's kind of running after the Graboid, which is going after her. Val manages to catch up to her and grabs her, takes her to the floor as the hopper thing gets pulled through the ground. And then they basically think they figured it out, because they're like, hey, let's get on the roof of everything. Let's all just get up on the roofs. So of course they do that, and they think, hey, maybe we've fooled them. by.
I think does.
I think Walter might get killed here actually at this
Yeah,
point.
I think
because
Walter,
they run back into the they run back in and that then it comes up through the floorboards, doesn't it?
Yeah, the fridge goes off again.
That's right.
Starts vibrating, and then they're desperately trying to pull it out, pull it over so they can get to the plug, and they manage to yank it. Val yanks the plug, and it all goes quiet, and they're just waiting. Nothing seems to be happening, and then of course Jules it comes through the floor and grabs Walter.
It is very Jaws-like, actually. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah,
it's Jaws-like. Grabs Walter and starts pulling him back.
They all try and help him, but
that's
like
trying
no hope.
Pull him out, but he's a goner.
Yeah. So they all make it.
That's when they do the jumping across the shelves and things to get to the roof. The hatch, isn't it? Like a ceiling hatch.
So yeah, they make it to the roof. And
she gets. That's another good scene as well. She's.
Of course, she saves his life, basically.
And she's jumping across the.
She makes it to the water tower, doesn't she? And she lets all the water out.
She's jumping across the shelves, and the last shelf falls through, and she ends up going through the window.
That's right.
And of course, they're already they need to get when they get over. They get over and it's like, oh, where is she? Where is she? And she's like climbing the water tower, thankfully.
But Val, in that moment, you can tell that Val does really love her. He really likes her because he looks distraught. He's like,
and the annoying kid, he's managed to climb on top of the little. Is it an outhouse? Because it's quite a small little.
Yeah, well, doesn't he mock them at first? He's like, "What are you doing up there?" And they're like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, get on top of that thing." But yeah, so they think basically they figured it out. They're like, "Well, if we're on top of the buildings, we're fine."
Yeah.
But it's not enough because the graboids start. They're feeling their way around the buildings and the foundations, and obviously they can still feel the vibrations of the people on top of the buildings.
Yeah.
So they start.
I think they get. I think they get a radio. They get a radio call from
the gun owners.
Yeah,
Bert and Heather.
Bert and Heather. Yeah, Bert. They've been trying to find the scientist, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's like we got her here, sort of thing, and they're on their way back, aren't they? So they.
Yeah.
They tell them that they're under the ground and all that sort of stuff, and it's, they got to be careful how they go. And I think she's doing something with the bullets. She puts the bullets in some sort of tub and it starts shaking them. I'm not sure what that is.
I think. Do not quote me because I know nothing about firearms. I think they were probably making bullets. And then it's part of that process. I don't know what it does. It looks to me like it might be a method of like sanding or cleaning.
Yeah,
maybe it cleans the bullets or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I was thinking, but I don't.
Maybe it smooths them. It like makes sure the metal's completely smooth so that there's nothing to catch. But I know fuck all about guns, so I don't know.
Guns, but not enough. I know. Well, mostly Western guns is what I know about. But
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what it is, but obviously it vibrates the whole cellar.
Yeah.
Their rec room, as it were. It's got just full of guns. It's got more guns than I think your average army has. Yeah, well,
of course, this creature ends up coming through the wall. And it's not prepared for the amount of weaponry that's...
So, I mean, to be fair, they put fucking shitloads of bullets. I mean, they've got like full M16 rounds, the shotguns.
It's insane. He ends up killing it with the fucking elephant gun, doesn't he?
Yeah, Bert gets grabbed at one point, and she shoots the snake bit off with a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes to the cupboard and gets the elephant gun, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And even that takes more than one shot.
Yeah, it's still a couple of shots. These things are tough. These things are really tough. It certainly seems at this point your best bet is to make them kill themselves.
Hi, you bastards! You invaded the wrong rec room.
Well, they did. I mean, to be fair, they definitely picked of all the houses. That was the worst one.
Yeah.
I think Nestor also gets killed around this point. yeah, so they finally kill the creature, and Val comes up with this plan. The plan is that they're going to get this old bulldozer, and they're going to pick everyone up in that because they think, well, that's massive, and they won't be able to.
There's a trailer that's got broken wheels, but he says the cat will pull it anyway because it's really powerful.
Now I'm not sure how like solid this plan is. I'm just having so much fun at this point. I'm like, fine, because I am like, well, they pulled a car down. They pull this down as well. I mean, it's it's really slow as well. So it kind of works. I'm like, fine.
I think it's because when they stop, it tries to pull them under. So they
I guess it's the caterpillar tracks that they think probably help them.
Yeah.
But yes, so Val goes to run for the bulldozer, and a graboid immediately goes after him.
They do the scissors, paper, scissors, and he says to it, Earl wins, and he says, "Oh, that is you won. That means I've got to go." And he's like, "No." And so Earl's going to go, and Val basically hits him so that he gets to go in his place.
Yeah. So he runs out there. Graboid comes after him, and he's having trouble starting the dozer.
They get to a point where we've missed a bit with her as well when she gets tangled up in the barbed wire.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. We
did and that's before they go to the roofs because She puts they're putting iodine on her wounds, aren't they? And
that's right. Yeah.
Nesta gives her a pair of brand new jeans to wear.
Yeah.
But we get that bit where stay still, and he's doing that. There is that brilliant bit which I can't remember where it is, but Val stood there on one leg.
And you've got the snake thing
he's
like
lifting
trying
it
to
up and down every time this little snaky thing goes by him.
Yeah, and he's pretty sure he's just screwed at this point. I mean, where do you go?
Yeah.
But fortunately for him, Rhonda, of course, figures out, she basically makes a hole in the water tower.
Yeah.
Or at least opens the valve to the water tower, I guess.
She breaks the pipe, I think.
Right. And obviously water hitting the ground is going to make a tremendous amount of vibration.
Yeah.
And it's enough to send the graboid back towards her. And basically saves Val's life. So, the plan comes together. And they get the dozer and the trailer.
Yeah.
And they start to pick people up.
Yeah.
Now, when they get to...
By this point, you've got they've pretty much destroyed the fucking roof of the...
Oh, yeah, because they're taking out the foundations. They're taking out everything. Like, everything's screwed. Like, they realize they cannot stay on top of buildings. It's not going to work. Now, everyone is cool with this plan. Except for when they get to Bert. Because Bert's like, I literally have... they've already killed one as well. From their perspective, they're like, "It's no problem for us. We're armed to the teeth, and we've already killed one of these things. Like, it's not a problem." But Val's like, Val and Earl, I think, are both. I mean, you get the impression Bert does not like Val anyway.
Yeah.
But Val,
they've made a load of bombs as well, haven't they?
They're just casually making dynamite on their roof. Yeah.
And I love that with the bit when he's got the fuses, and he says, "I've got some cannon fuses." He says, "What have you got those for?" My cannon.
Yeah. He says it so matter of fact.
Yeah,
well.
Yeah. It's like
it's just like, well, obviously for my cannon.
Everybody have a cannon?
Yeah. But yeah, so he's like, we've got a perfectly good place here. But Val argues like you're not going to be able to stay in a building. It's not going to work. And of course in this country, it wouldn't work as well because we have stone foundations and we have stone buildings. Obviously out there, it's all wood. It's coming down. We should also point out as well. Obviously, we've said they're in a valley, but this is a very isolated place. So they no one's gonna come in or out.
Middle of nowhere, a valley in the middle of nowhere. And
it's the perfect place for this kind of thing to happen, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they have an argument, but in the end, they are convinced to come along, and we get that scene where they're just dumping like tons of weapons at them
Yeah.
into the trailer, and the dynamite and whatnot.
And I like that the kid says, "I want a weapon." He says, "I wouldn't." He says, "I'm not going to give you a weapon."
Doesn't he? What does he say? He says like, "I wouldn't give you a gun if it was World War III or something like that."
Yes,
Doesn't
I think that's what he says. Yeah.
he? Yeah. So off they go. But it's kind of, I like this scene as well, because as they're going, they're like, it's working, because they can see the graboids are trying and failing at first to pull the thing under. And then later they're still driving with the dozer, and they see them doing stuff out in the distance, and they're like, what are they doing? And I think it's Bert that just says, I don't care what they're doing as long as they're doing it over there.
Do it over there.
But of course they soon realize what they were doing, because these graboids are very intelligent.
Yeah.
In fact, arguably too intelligent in places, because they do some things in this movie where I'm like, how would they know to do that without noise or anything? But fine, yeah. It serves the plot and whatever. It's fun. So they've dug a trench, and of course they don't realize this. They ride straight into it, and they realize that the graboids are that intelligent that they actually prepared a trap. So again, they are resorting to running onto some rocks. So they all head to some rocks, and they're surrounded by the graboids.
And what I like about this as well, that at this point, the kid won't move. He's not going to move. So Bert does give him a gun.
Yeah.
And they get over there. I love it. They get over there, and he says, Timothy, he goes, there aren't any bullets in this gun. He's like, you think I was going to give you a loaded gun?
Yeah. And of course now Bert is incensed with Val. He's like, we were safe. We had guns. We had like a position,
a food, drink, filtered air. And there is a bit where they're talking about how the valley and how perfect it is because it's it's so isolated, it's lonely. There's only one way in or out, and Bert says, "I know, that's why I moved here."
Yeah, that was the point. Yeah, I wanted a bottleneck. Yeah. So they have it out, and I love I love when they break them up from the fight. His wife, what is her name? I can't.
Reba McEntire's the actress.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think of the character's name. But anyway, I love Heather. That's it. I love when they're breaking it up. Bert's like, oh, he thinks he knows everything, and Heather's like, yeah, I know. He's like, she's like, she knows what he's like. She's like, yeah, Val is an asshole, but just ignore him. Whatever.
Again, Reba McEntire, I think this is the first movie she was in, and she's brilliant.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
I don't think initially when she went for that, they were like, oh, what the hell is country singer going to be doing? It's like, no, she was brilliant apparently in the auditions. There's like, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And Michael Gross. So Michael Gross, I remember I used to watch Family Ties.
Yeah.
And he was the dad in Family Ties. And apparently, he literally, the day before he started filming this, he just finished the last episode of Family Ties.
Wow.
Like the day before, he's like, he finished that and drove here for this movie. He's like, bloody hell, that's.
It's like this shoot was on the way home.
Yeah, you could not have got two different characters.
No, and it does take a lot of actors a long time to get out of those characters. So fair play to him for switching like that.
Yeah, I mean, the dad in Family Ties is like one of those nice, dads, isn't he? He's like the perfect father figure.
Yeah,
and it's like completely different as Bert.
Yeah. But they come up with a plan. I think it's Val that comes up with the plan. No, actually it's Bert, because Bert, of course, they make the point earlier about how Bert can lasso. Yeah. He's learned how to lasso, and he thinks that Val's jealous of his lasso ability. But I think Val might suggest it of like, basically we'll go fishing.
Yeah.
With dynamite. So of course Bert does his swinging the dynamite thing, and he throws it out there, and they manage to get one of the graboids to take the bait.
They actually realized that when he drops, so when they were still on the digger, they realized that the bombs. So he drops the bomb, and they realize that the sound hurts them. So they for a brief period they go away.
Yeah.
But they kind of come straight back. So So they initially they use the bombs as like a decoy to get them away so that they can get to the rocks.
That's right, yeah. But now, obviously, trapped on the rocks, they're like,
yeah.
hey, maybe we can actually blow them up. So they manage to get one. One of them takes it and gets blown up. And they all cheer. And then this hail of guts, orange guts, just
bright orange guts,
just comes like flying down on them. And they try again. Now this entire film, the graboid that lost one of its snake heads to the truck, they've called Stumpy, and Stumpy is supposedly, it seems, the smartest of the graboids. So it doesn't fall for it.
No, it takes the bomb and spits it back.
It spits it back, yeah, and of course they.
Unfortunately for them, lands directly on their pile of bombs.
It's a fucking hell of a shot.
Yeah. I've got to say, the amount of explosive in those bombs would have probably decimated that rock.
I thought exactly the same. That rock stays remarkably undamaged by that explosion. Like, that was, I mean, it was a bag full of dynamite, and it wasn't like it was small sticks of dynamite. It was like they'd filled these fucking things with, like, it was huge.
And I like it when he's actually, when they're making them as well, and he says to him, "What's in them?" He says, "Oh, just a few household chemicals, things I've got lying around."
Yeah.
Also, that's another thing as well. When they're in the bunker, and is one of the only bad shots in the movie when they're shooting the creature. The blue screen of them stood in front of the wall.
Yeah,
that's a little ropey. That's one of the only times that the effects don't really hold up.
Yeah, because I think most of it's practical. It's just a couple of shots. Yeah, the keying is not great in that shot. That's for sure. But yeah. So they managed to kill one, but of course Stumpy spits it out and basically explodes all the dynamite. So they all scatter.
Yeah.
And a lot of them end up off the rock. Some of them move to other rocks, but a lot of them end up, out.
And they realise that Val has got the only bomb left. He
does, and he's ended up the farthest away.
Yeah.
Now they're all shouting at him, and they're like, "Use the dynamite."
Yeah, you use the dynamite to distract it and get back to the rock.
Yeah, and he's like, "We've only got one left," and like Bert's like, or Earl, I think, is like, "Yeah, but if you die, then we won't have it anyway. So it's like, you might as well use it now. Like, there's no, there's no point."
There is I think it's one of the arguments they're having about. He says to. So they said to Earl, talking about how long you'll survive. It's like, we're only going to survive 3 more days, and Earl goes, "Yeah, but that's 3 more days I want to live."
Like, that's 3 more days I want to live. Like, okay. So he ends up using it.
Yeah.
And he
figures out that he's got a plan, and he's gonna basically. He does a runner, and with the thing coming towards him, and like, use the bomb, what are you doing? And he's basically stood on the edge of the cliff, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then at the last minute, he throws the bomb and jumps out of the way, and the creature tunnels through the side of the cliff and falls to its death.
It's such a wonderful splat.
It is brilliant.
It's great. I mean, this thing must have been pretty big and heavy, and they just filled it full of pus and just dropped it.
Shout, "Can you fly, sucker?"
Yeah. And it just smashes onto the rocks and just dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everyone approaches and they're all impressed. I think Earl's genuinely impressed with Val. He's like, "Hey, you did good." And like I said, I quite like the symmetry of them ending where they started as well, and that's what gave him the idea, because at the start he's looking over that edge. He looks over there.
Also, we did forget when they're running, because he doesn't have his lighter, does he? Because he gave it to her earlier on.
Oh, of course, yes.
So when they're all they all end up running.
Yeah.
towards the cliff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Of course, she starts running after him, doesn't she? She's like, "I've got the lighter!" Like, oh shit. But yeah, so they all managed. Well, these people, not the others. These people managed to survive, and Earl manages to kind of elbow Val enough times in the side to finally ask Rhonda out. Val's like, she's a university student, she's got a great future, like, and he's got no prospects. Like, what does she want? But Earl says, you should let her make that decision, not you. And we would have and they lived happily ever after. But of course, we see in the final scene some of the dirt moving. And I mean, to be fair, it would be, well, obviously biologically it would be very unlikely that only 4 of these creatures ever existed. But of course, we now realize she only ever said that there was at least 3. I think there are 4 in the film, and this is obviously, now we know there's at least one more. Which sets us up for Tremors 2. I think it's called Aftershock, which is the perfect name for a sequel to a movie called Tremors. But that was Tremors.
And I can't remember. Is Fred Ward's in that one, isn't he?
Yes, I think he is. If I remember rightly, he is. I'm going to check right now. I'm pretty sure he is. Let's have a look. But yeah, I've got reasonably fond memories of Tremors 2, so I am going to check it out again soon.
Fred Gross again.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think this is, I don't know if they get him back for any others.
No, I think he's only in this one, but Bert's in.
Bert's in loads, yeah. But I think Earl is only in this one and the second one, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely loved watching this again. It was great fun. Brought back a lot of memories. And it's a really terrific film.
I mean, later on, they end up doing all sorts with them. They got like flying ones.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I did notice that Netflix has got number 5, which I haven't seen, and and again, Bert is in that one, and I was tempted to watch it. I haven't yet, but maybe I will watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be fun. Why not? I'm definitely going to watch the second one after this, because I really fancy rewatching that one.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love Tremors. I highly recommend it if you're in the mood for silly, fun monster movie. Yeah, as you said, it is a 50s B movie with early 90s sensibilities. It's great.
And the director, Ron Underwood, he went on to do one of my favourite guilty pleasure movies, which is The Mighty Joe Young.
Oh, great! I love Mighty Joe Young.
I love that. The remake of that, I think, is one of the best remakes. Actually,
it's a pretty good one. Actually, yeah, we never talk about that. Actually, yeah.
It's really sweet and it's really good. And as much as I love the original, I think maybe I like the remake of that better.
Yeah,
and I think that was like the first thing that Charlize Theron was in.
It may well be, actually. Yeah, you may well be right.
It's certainly the first movie I remember seeing her in.
Yeah.
I've got a real soft spot for that, because I think that the animatronic on Joe Young in that is really fucking good.
It is really good. Yeah, I remember that being really, really good. But yeah, a fantastic film, highly recommended.
Yeah, I think I would definitely say, even if you don't watch any of the others, just watch the first one, because the first one's...
Yeah, the first one stands alone as a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's brilliant in itself.
But yeah, obviously we will be back next week with our usual review fare. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, take care, stay safe, and we'll catch you then.
Bye.